This page is the cover of the mag and it's all about Tony Hawk's skateboarding, boasting a review of the Radical Skatefest before anyone else got their hands on it. There's a big splash about E3, calling it E3 Exposed, promising all the biggest game reveals in depth, and they were giving away a free cheats codron with it, which was always a bonus. The cover highlights a bunch of games straight from E3 in Los Angeles, including Sonic Square, which I think became Sonic Shuffle, Sonic Adventure 2 of course, Silent Scope, F355 Challenge, Soul Reaver 2, Cannon Spike and Street Fighter 3, Third Strike. Plus there's an exclusive preview of Sydney 2K. Billed as your first in-depth guide to the fantastic Olympic button basher. Down at the bottom it mentions cheats on the disc for games like Crazy Taxi, Tomb Raider, Sonic Adventure, Rayman 2 and House of the Dead 2. And finally, a little shout out to a massive review and step-by-step walkthrough for Resident Evil Code Veronica. Classic stuff. This page is an advert for Star Wars Episode 1 Racer on the Dreamcast. It's got a picture of a desert landscape from the game and the text says, "Take a good look. The next time you see it you'll be doing 600 miles per hour, which is a decent way to hype up the speed of the pod racing." It also shows the Dreamcast logo and the official Star Wars Episode 1 Racer logo. Classic Dreamcast advertising, really. This Dreamcast Magazine issue, boldly proclaimed as the best, features a cover story on E3, highlighting exciting announcements and a piece on Stunt GP. Previews include Colin McRae Rally 2 and Deep Fighter, while E3 Show Report and Blissful for DC are covered in DC Express. Reviews focus on Tony Hawk's skateboarding and Code Veronica, with visuals emphasizing these titles, and Echo the Dolphin, which is deemed essential. Episode 1 Racer, Sydney 2000, and Colin McRae 2 are recommended. The issue also contains Sega Bass Fishing Tips and Four-Wheel Thunder. The keydrum includes Action Replay CDX and a guide. Editor Keith Stewart's letter discusses E3, the Dreamcast lineup, including Metropolis Street Racer and Virtua Tennis, and acknowledges a games drought while remaining optimistic. This page showcases the E3 show, emphasizing it as the greatest show on earth for Dreamcast. It mentions that 62,000 people attended over 3 days, and DC UK presented 120 Dreamcast titles, calling it the biggest video game event on the planet. The page features images of characters and scenes related to Dreamcast games, including folks from Shenmue, Sonic the Hedgehog, a Formula 1 car, a character from Quake 2 iArena, and someone who looks like they are from Soul Calibur. The article talks about the massive scale of the Los Angeles Convention Center, where E3 takes place, and mentions that Dreamcast is eager to show off its wares with a mix of familiar and brand new titles. The next page features 2 game previews from E3 2000. On the left, it's Quake 2 iArena. The article talks about how the Dreamcast version is shaping up nicely, focusing on the fast-paced fragfest action and network play. There are screenshots showing in-game action with characters blasting each other, and it highlights that it's aimed at delivering smooth 30 FPS gameplay even with multiple players online. On the right, we have Half-Life. The preview emphasizes beefed-up visuals and an exclusive mission for the Dreamcast. It mentions it as a PC classic, coming to Dreamcast with enhanced graphics and a new single-player mission. There's a screenshot showing in-game action with improved weapon graphics. Dabbe! Below Half-Life, there are smaller snippets for Gunbird 2, described as a vertical scrolling shooter from Sikio, noting it's like Radiant Silvergun in terms of gameplay. Lastly, there is a preview for M.U.U.T 2025, a US-developed title involving zombies in a near-future urban setting, mentioning it's got advanced AI and multiplayer options. E3 2000 showcased several arcade conversions coming to the Dreamcast. Konami's Silent Scope, a sniper game, promised a complete conversion with extra modes emphasizing precision aiming. Sega's Outrigger, a multiplayer first-person shooter, offered fast-paced action with Virtua Cop-like controls and multi-level environments, aiming for a September release. Capcom's Cannon Spike, a self-parodying isometric shooter, featured recognizable characters like Mega Man. It promised hand-to-hand combat and over-the-top boss battles, with an autumn release. Finally, 18-Wheeler, also by Sega, offered a near-perfect conversion of the trucking simulator, with added truck selections, a story mode, and multiplayer options, including split-screen, also slated for autumn. E3 2000 showcased several driving games for the Dreamcast. Ferrari 355, published by Sega AM2, promises realistic arcade racing with stunning visuals, 60 FPS performance, and features like network play. F1 World GP2, from Video System, boasts improved visuals and 4-player multiplayer, with a planned August release. Test Drive Le Mans, by Infogrames and Reflections, includes a 24-hour race mode and aims for an autumn release, though initial impressions are mixed. Vanishing Point, developed by Clockwork and Interplay, is an arcade racer with cutting-edge visuals utilizing 3DFX Voodoo Edge tech, also slated for autumn. Finally, Gorka Morka, based on the Orc-Spec Ops from the PC game, aims to bring the PC experience to the Dreamcast, published by Real Sports and GTI. E3 2000 showcased several upcoming adventure games. Soul Reaver 2 continues Raziel's story, promising improved combat, new swords, and exploration of the Soul Reaver and Blood Omen timelines. Developed by Crystal Dynamics, it's scheduled for a March 2001 release. Alone in the Dark IV, returning to its survival horror roots, emphasizes atmosphere, puzzles, and exploration within a detailed setting. It's slated for an autumn 2000 release by Infogrames. Evil Dead, inspired by the film, offers zombie blasting action and chainsaw gameplay. Finally, Evil Twin, published by Ubisoft for a November release, features playable twins, character progression, parallel universe exploration, and dialogue. E3 2000 showcased a variety of sports and fighting games. Street Fighter II: Third Strike, with its new groove system, promises enhanced special effects. Ready 2 Rumble 2 expands its roster, featuring returning characters, and even Michael Jackson. Ultimate Fighting Championship emphasizes realism with smooth animation. In sports, Virtua Tennis impressed with its arcade style and graphical quality, targeting a Christmas release. NBA 2K1, aimed for realistic basketball gameplay, also planning a Christmas release. Finally, MTV Sports, skateboarding and Pro Surfer aim for authenticity, with realistic physics and environments. This page has a look at a few games coming to the Dreamcast. First up, Sonic Shuffle, which looks a bit like a Mario Party clone. A board game type affair with Sonic characters, using cards. Then there's Sonic Adventure 2, finally! Been waiting for that one. They're saying the graphics are even better, and it's coming next year in 2001. There's also a quick mention of Star Wars Super Bombad Racing, another car racer, this time with a Star Wars theme using characters from Phantom Menace. Should be a laugh. And finally, Looney Tunes Space Race, which is coming over from the PC. Looks like cartoon racing, with all the usual Looney Tunes characters and those crazy Acme gadgets. All of these are slated for release later in the year, autumn or summertime it seems. Then on the right side, there's a big advert for Resident Evil Code Veronica. Blimey, it looks properly dark and unsettling. Disturbingly real, is the tagline. And they aren't kidding. The magazine itself has given it a whopping 9 out of 10, saying it's an unrivaled gaming experience. Looks like Capcom are really pushing the boat out with this one. This page is a preview for Colin McRae Rally 2, and blimey, it's looking rather good. They're calling it the Flying Scotsman's Dreamcast debut, and reckon it's going to be one of the best racing games ever. High praise indeed. It seems they've been playing an early version, and the magazine is already impressed, saying the early versions are looking smooth, and the handling is superb. They mention the graphics are looking really polished and the handling is a step up, more realistic than the previous game, which is saying something. It looks like they've got Colin McRae himself and his co-driver Nicky Grist involved, which is proper authentic. They're talking about various game modes like Championship, Single Race, and Time Trial, and even a multi-stage rally event for 2 players. Sounds like a good bit of fun with a mate. Apparently there are 12 rally cars to choose from, and 8 different track locations, so plenty of variety there then. They also mention 5 different camera views, including one from inside the cockpit. All in all, it's shaping up to be a cracker for rally fans on the Dreamcast. This page is a preview of Deep Fighter, described as sci-fi submarine action for the Dreamcast. It seems to be set on a future Earth, where mankind has retreated underwater. A bit of a Waterworld scenario they mention. The preview highlights it as an excellent aquatic adventure, with a dramatic storyline involving a defense force and invading hordes. They're talking about the gameplay involving puzzle solving, exploration, and resource management alongside the combat. It seems you pilot a submarine, battling enemy subs and vicious aquatic creatures. There's talk of missions involving radioactive materials, big fish, and magnetic grappling hook for tasks. The screenshots show underwater combat, with subs and some rather murky environments. They mention 4 main environments: Paradise, a glorious volcano, the lost city of Atlantis, and some tropical region called Rockpool. It sounds like there's a mix of mission objectives and a focus on a detailed underwater world. Typical Dreamcast stuff really, pushing the boundaries. It's described as progressing well in development, so hopefully this one made it to release. The next page showcases South Park Rally, a kart racing game for the Dreamcast. It's touted as a subversive city and cartoon land tour, guided by Chef himself. They're really pushing the South Park angle, saying it's full of weapons, chickens, comedy and good looving. Apparently, this is Acclaim's take on the kart racing genre, aiming for adults rather than just kids, like Mario Kart or Diddy Kong Racing, which they mention. It sounds like they've packed in all the South Park humor, characters, and locations you'd expect. The farm, Big Gay Al's Mr. Garrison's place, even the kids and families feature. They're boasting about loads of weapons, 15 bonus games, and 24 playable characters including Mr. Garrison. The screenshots show the typical South Park look, translated into 3D, with familiar characters racing around South Park. They even mention a Wild West racism mode, which sounds typically outrageous for South Park. It's described as a really packed game, with lots to do, so it could be a decent laugh for fans of the show. This page is a look at Buster Move 4, or Puzzle Bobble 4 as it's also known, and it's shaping up rather nicely for the Dreamcast. They reckon it's a proper head-to-head puzzle game, good for a bit of competition, especially against Choo Choo Rocket. It's all about the bubble-popping action we know and love, and they're saying this one could be the best in the series. From the looks of it, they've tweaked a few things, like smaller bubbles, and some clever puzzle mechanics. The On the Pull section seems to explain some new pulley system feature for lining up your shots. There's mention of chain reactions and strategic play, so it sounds like there's more depth than just blasting bubbles. They're saying the story mode has been jazzed up too, and you can even skip cutscenes if you fancy just getting straight to the puzzling. Visually, it's bright and colourful as you'd expect, and the character animations are apparently quite charming. They're also highlighting a puzzle editor, which is a nice touch, lets you create your own levels. Sounds like a solid puzzle game to keep an eye on when it eventually hits the shops. This page is an advert for Choo Choo Rocket. It's shouting about giving away a free copy of the game to be a Eurostar. Seems like they're pushing the online Dream Arena service, mentioning you can get it if you buy a new Dreamcast, or already own one and get online. You can take part in the European Choo Choo Challenge too. Visually, you've got the Choo Choo characters, and those pesky cat things, Kapu Kapus, all over the place. Looks like a good push for online play, and getting folks hooked on Choo Choo Rocket. The next page here's diving straight into the news. It's all about Sega at E3. Big show, as you remember. Seems like they properly went for it with the Dreamcast, showing off loads of new games. They're saying it was an explosion of noise, girls, and all the latest video games. Typical E3 really, a bit overwhelming but exciting. Main buzz was online. Apparently 80% of the booth was dedicated to online gaming, which was still a relatively new thing back then on consoles, but Sega were pushing it hard with Dream Arena. They mentioned NFL 2K and NBA 2K, being big for the American market. Those sports games were always popular over there. Then there's a bit about a Sega party they threw called Shake Yo Thang. The American Marcus. Sounds like a proper niece-up in a downtown La Club with free booze. They mention Peter Moore, Charles Belfield and Tetsu Kayama were there, all the Sega top brass, and even Tetsuya Mizuguchi, you know, the chap behind Sega Rally and Space Channel 5, apparently he was on top form. They had Star Online branded rubber balls flying around, and even Mini Driver made an appearance, whatever that was, probably some mascot thing. Sounds like they were really trying to make a splash at E3, and get everyone hyped for the Dreamcast. Good times, good times. This article highlights Sega's strong showing at E3, focusing on the Dreamcast. The E3 List of Love section praises games like Mr. Driller, Metropolis Street Racer, and Outrigger. The main headline declares E3 as Sega's show, emphasizing the large number of games, particularly those with online play via Dream Arena, and mentions titles like Sega Rally 2, Jet Grind Radio, and Quake 2 iArena. A Dreamcast DVD add-on was also showcased. The article also includes a critical piece titled, PS2, You've Done Too Much, Much Too Young, suggesting the Dreamcast is still a viable competitor despite the PS2's early launch. It argues that developers may struggle to utilize the PS2's power immediately, and touts the Dreamcast's online focus. Finally, several upcoming games are briefly mentioned, including M.ASS, 2099, Jet Rocket, and others. The next page showcases an advert from simplygames.com, pushing their amazing prices on Dreamcast games with fast and free delivery. They're listing some cracking titles like Crazy Taxi, Echo the Dolphin, Grand Theft Auto 2, MDK2, Resident Evil, Code Veronica, South Park Rally, Tomb Raider with a strategy guide, V-Rally 2, and Worldwide Soccer, Euro Edition. All solid games there at what I imagine are decent prices. Over on the right there's an interesting piece announcing 400 games for Dreamcast. But it turns out, it's about Dreamcast 2, that clever PlayStation emulator. Apparently it's going to let us play a stack of PS1 games on our Dreamcast. Up to 400 of them according to this. It mentions it needs the Dreampad and a memory card. They're even saying it makes PlayStation games look better on the Dreamcast, mentioning Doom and Turismo 2 looking better than GT 2000 on the PS1. Intriguing stuff, that Dreamcast. Below that is a column called Dave 2000, sounding like a regular opinion piece. It's talking about how Dreamcast has a great lineup of games now, but stores are starting to stick them in the back corners. This Dave chap reckons it's a shame as Dreamcast has some proper quality software and plenty of variety, highlighting Sega's efforts and the good online scene. He's saying we gamers should be shouting louder for Dreamcast and making sure it gets the attention it deserves, especially with all the online stuff. Good point, well made. This magazine highlights Dreamcast news and promotions. First, the announcement of the DC mouse, aimed at online gaming, specifically for titles like Quake 3 Arena. Sega also discusses audio enhancements, including Dolby surround sound for a more immersive experience. Next, there's a promotion offering a free Choo Choo Rocket demo disc tied to a European competition. The Action Replay CDX, a cheat device, is also advertised, offering codes, enhancements, and online updates. The magazine includes a list of cheats from a demo disc for games like Crazy Taxi and Sonic Adventure. Finally, there is an advertisement to purchase back issues of DC UK magazine, Paxience. The next page has a look at some third-party Dreamcast peripherals, starting with the Interact Fishing Controller and the Mad Catz Dream Wheel 2. Neither of these peripherals sound that great, to be honest, both getting a rather dismal 3 out of 10. The fishing controller seems to be a bit fiddly, and the wheel is apparently not up to scratch compared to the official Sega wheel. There's also a piece about Nice Puppies, which is actually about the Tiger Electronics Poochie robot dog toy, a strange inclusion. Flipping over to the right side, we've got an advert for Sega Worldwide Soccer 2000 Euro Edition. It boasts about international tournaments, detailed players and stadiums, and customizable gameplay. It mentions you can play with up to 6 billion players, which is a bit of an exaggeration, probably referring to the online capabilities. The tagline is, "Best Dreamcast footy game so far," which is a bold claim. The next page kicks off with news of a Dreamcast price slash across the pond in America. Sega are obviously feeling the heat from the upcoming PlayStation 2. They're dropping the price to a mere $99 and even throwing in a $50 mail-in rebate, trying to shift consoles before the PS2 arrives. Then there's a bit about a Scottish video game tournament, called the Scottish Games Championship apparently. It was held up north in Kirkcaldy, and they were playing all sorts of formats. The prize was a brand new Dreamcast naturally, plus a load of peripherals and games. Over on the right we've got the Dreamcast Top 10 chart. Number 1 is Sega Bass Fishing, still popular as ever it seems. Crazy Taxi is hanging in there at number 2, and Tomb Raider 4 and Resident Evil 2 are still in the top 5. Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver and Monaco Grand Prix are mid-table, and then Rayman 2 and Soul Calibur are further down, with Sonic Adventure and NBA 2K00 rounding out the list. And finally, a full-page advert for Echo the Dolphin, Defender of the Future. Looks quite impressive visually, with the dolphin and jellyfish, and it's coming out Europe-wide from the 16th of June. Stunning underwater odyssey it says, which sounds about right for an Echo game. This page is a preview of Stunt GP, looks like a bit of a madcap racer for the Dreamcast. The article is hyping up the game, suggesting it's going to be a right laugh with its radio-controlled car-style rumps. They reckon you'll need good thumbs to handle it. Visually, the screenshots show off some pretty colourful tracks and stunt arenas. It's all very bright and arcadey looking. They mention that Team 17, who are developing it, have put a lot of effort into making the vehicles feel like real racers despite being toy-like. Apparently, they've focused on jumps and stunts, with ramps being important for pulling off impressive moves. They even talk about a turbo boost and how you can earn error miles for stunts, which sounds like it could be a good bit of fun. There's a section with an interview with Martin Brown, the director of development at Team 17, talking about their aims for the game. He says they didn't want to make another grey tractor fair, and aimed for a blend of classic driving games and stunt racer-type gameplay. He also mentions they used real RC cars as a reference point for the physics and handling. Sounds like they're trying to make something a bit different to the usual racing fare on the Dreamcast, focusing on stunts and over-the-top action. Stunt GP is a fast-paced racer, with a focus on stunts and customization. Players will earn credits to upgrade their vehicles, with parts like spark plugs and chassis mods. The game features a Gran Turismo-like single-player mode and multiplayer options. Team 17 has designed tracks with jumps and stunts in mind, and they've focused on a realistic physics engine. Features like Ghost Cars and Golden Car mode cater to dedicated players. The developers aimed for a unique experience, blending classic driving with stunt action, drawing inspiration from RC cars to improve handling and inject color. The goal is an arcade feel with driving depth, ensuring players stay hooked. The game is expected to release around October. Screenshots highlight bright, colorful tracks and action-packed stunts. Gameplay is advertising a Dreamcast sale, with all games priced at £29.99 or less, while supplies last. As Britain's largest mail-order computer game supplier, they offer a wide selection of titles, including classics like Crazy Taxi, Jet Set Radio, Shenmue, and Soul Calibur. They're also promoting Dreamcast hardware bundles, including Wafer Striker and a SCART cable for under £250, plus individual accessories such as controllers and VGA boxes. Gameplay emphasizes price, choice, quality, and service, offering free first-class delivery and a money-back guarantee. The ad features game screenshots, showcasing the Dreamcast's extensive library and the value offered by retailers like Gameplay. This page is a preview of Olympic Hero, the official game of the Sydney 2000 Olympics on Dreamcast. It's touted as the official video game of the Summer Olympics, encompassing the entire Olympic experience, and apparently the developers had access to historical blueprints of all the stadia. The screenshots show a variety of Olympic sports rendered in-game, including athletics on the track, kayaking, swimming, cycling, and weightlifting. The developers, Nigel Collis and his team, who also worked on Sydney 2000, aimed to create a realistic representation of the events. They focused on capturing the feel and physics of each sport, offering a multiplayer experience, which is highlighted as a key feature. It's mentioned that this is intended to be a proper Olympic game, something different from previous titles in the genre. This page continues the preview of Sydney 2000, the official game of the Olympic Games. It's really pushing the boat out on the idea of a detailed Olympic experience, saying they've gone all in to recreate the atmosphere and events. We're seeing more screenshots across different disciplines, like athletics, weightlifting, kayaking and swimming, all aiming for realism and apparently built from actual blueprints of the Sydney stadia. They're really highlighting the animation as being top-notch for its time, claiming it's the most impressive animation yet seen. There's also a mention of a virtual gym mode, where you can train your athlete to improve skills like speed, strength and reactions, before taking on the Olympic challenges. It sounds like they're going for depth, not just a button basher. They also mention motion capture, and the involvement of Olympic coaches to make it feel authentic. Multiplayer is still flagged as a big part of the package too, which is always good for replayability. This section previews the events of the Sydney 2000 game. Many events focus on precise timing and rhythm, like the 100 meters sprint, 100 meters freestyle, high diving, using rhythm lines, triple jump, and cycling. Others emphasize technique and strategy, such as kayaking, 110 meters hurdles, high jump, javelin, release timing, and hammer throw, rotation. Skeet shooting requires aim and timing. Weightlifting highlights fantastic facial animation to enhance the visual experience. The game aims to provide a realistic feel beyond simple button mashing. The DC review section opens with high praise for Tony Hawk Skateboarding, awarding it an 11/10 for its realistic gameplay and impressive graphics. Other game reviews include Code Veronica, 62/100, deemed underwhelming, and Echo the Dolphin, 70/100, praised for its visuals. Wacky Races, 76/100, is described as fun. Nightmare Creatures 2, 78/100, is still scary but repetitive, and Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, 80/100, captures the film's speed. The review system is explained, highlighting the value of games scoring above 5. The DC UK Essentials section introduces the review panel, detailing their current game picks. The page also features an advertisement for SFX Babe's special magazine. This page is all about Tony Hawk's skateboarding on the Dreamcast, and it's still getting rave reviews. They've slapped a DC UK Essential badge on it, and it's clear they reckon the Dreamcast is the perfect machine to show off this game. The quote at the top is all about how the Dreamcast is powerful enough to finally do the game justice. The review talks about how addictive and realistic the gameplay is, and how visually stunning it is. There are screenshots showing off the in-game action, and a panel on the right breaks down some of the special moves you can pull off, like Tony Hawk's signature moves and other impressive tricks, listing the button combos you need to master them. It sounds like this is the definitive version of Tony Hawk's skateboarding, and a must-have for any Dreamcast owner. The next page continues with more Tony Hawk's skateboarding goodness, offering some handy hints to help you nail gold medals in the competitions and unlock everything. It breaks down 3 competitions, Competition 1, 2 and 3, each with screenshots to give you an idea of what to expect. For Competition 1, the advice is to start with flip tricks and manuals, then move on to grinds, especially on the rail after the second ramp. Linking tricks together is key for racking up points. For Competition 2, it's all about manuals through narrow pipes and jumping over beam combos to earn special bonuses and multipliers. Finally, Competition 3 is set in a downhill course where you need to combine grinds and lip tricks, aiming for big air to impress the judges and get those high scores. There's also a quirky tip at the bottom mentioning something about clearing a swimming pool with big air, which is a bit of fun. Dreamcast Magazine reviewed Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, highlighting its tape challenges, each level offering unique objectives. Notable challenges include knocking over boxes in the warehouse, grinding car roofs in downtown San Francisco, and setting off valves in Downhill Jam. Bonus points are hidden, and skaters unlock customizable decks and wheels. Multiplayer modes, Graffiti and Trick Attack, are praised as frantic and fun, especially with 2 players. The game also features his score tapes, awarding medals, and unlockable items. The review gave the game a 9/10, lauding its graphics, sound, addictive gameplay and multiplayer. The reviewer concluded that the game is incredibly satisfying, with multiplayer being a highlight and the game providing long-lasting replayability. This Dreamcast review raves about Resident Evil Code Veronica, calling it the best zombie game yet. Developed by Capcom and Shinji Mikami, it continues the core Resident Evil storyline with improved 3D graphics and a focus on horror. The game follows Claire Redfield searching for her brother, encountering zombies, spiders, and formidable bosses like the Tyrant and new monsters such as the zombie dogs. Players will battle these foes on a remote island after Claire's capture. The review highlights the game's creepy atmosphere, detailed enemy descriptions, and promising screenshots. The preview hypes the game as a must-have, building significant anticipation for Resident Evil fans on the Dreamcast. This page features an interview titled, Mr. Evil Talks to DC UK, with Hiroki Kato, a producer from Capcom, about Resident Evil Code Veronica. Kato discusses the game's development, mentioning that they aim to create a free-moving camera and detailed, realistic facial animation. He reveals that brainstorming sessions inspired the new monsters and notes cinematic influences from films like The Matrix and John Woo's movies. He also touches upon the positive reception of the game in Japan and expresses excitement about the potential of online play in the future for Resident Evil. The page showcases screenshots from Code Veronica, including Claire in action and a look at a new monster, reinforcing the graphical advancements praised on the previous page. The interview and visuals continue to build hype for this must-have Dreamcast title. The next page is the DC review for Resident Evil Code Veronica, and it's a belter, scoring a massive 9 out of 10. They reckon it takes the survival horror genre to a whole new level. Graphically, they're raving about the incredible backgrounds and characters. Sound gets top marks too, described as immensely realistic and immersive. Gameplay-wise, they say it sticks to the classic Resident Evil formula, but they reckon it's the best execution of that formula yet. The overall verdict is crystal clear. This is a must-have for any Dreamcast owner, no question. The screenshots dotted around show Claire in the thick of it, facing off against zombies, the Tyrant, and even a look at that new Bandersnatch creature. And Wesker makes an appearance too, all looking rather impressive. They're really pushing the boat out to say this is essential for any self-respecting Dreamcast fan wanting a proper horror experience. This page showcases a full-page advert for the rather intriguing game, The Nomad Soul. Promising an ultimate out-of-body experience, it's clearly aiming to push the boundaries on the Dreamcast. It's billed as an epic action-slash-adventure title, boasting a seriously impressive pedigree with an original soundtrack by none other than David Bowie and Reeves Gabrels. Developed by Quantic Dream and published by Eidos, this one looks like it's trying to exploit the Dreamcast's potential, no doubt about it. We get a glimpse of the game's box art and some moody-looking in-game screenshots scattered around the page too. The next page features a cracking review for Echo the Dolphin, Defender of the Future on the Dreamcast. It's a full 2-page spread, really going to town on how visually stunning it is, proclaiming the graphics are some of the most beautiful you're ever likely to have seen. Looking at the screenshots, you can see what they mean. The underwater environments are lush and atmospheric. They're highlighting the game's unique elements like crystals, whale music, and even divine karmic intervention, which sounds a bit bonkers but intriguing. Apparently it's not just a pretty face, they mention there's a proper game in there with puzzle solving and combat, albeit with a dolphin flavor. And get this, Tom Baker himself, the legendary Doctor Who, is doing voiceover work, which is a fantastic touch. DC UK are clearly impressed, giving it their recommends badge. They even mention the original Echo on the Mega Drive to draw a comparison, suggesting this is a worthy successor. Looks like a proper artistic and unique experience for the Dreamcast. This page continues the review of Echo the Dolphin, Defender of the Future. It dives deeper into the gameplay, stating, the difficulty level is rammed up to the max, which suggests it's not a walk in the park. There's a section titled, Hear My Song, which highlights the importance of learning songs from underwater inhabitants, with a funny quote from a dolphin about teaching sharks to fight but then going off to play with turtles. The review points out that as you progress you learn songs, essential for communication and puzzle solving. It mentions, the Song of the Shark is vital for combat. The page also includes a Tonight You Swim with the Fishes section, which looks like a beginner's guide for the first level, giving tips like swimming into the lowest rock, turning your back, heading to the dolphin, and swimming into a hole. It's all quite cryptic but hints at puzzle elements from the get-go. Finally, in a section called So That's the Plot, Game History and Basics Covered, they summarize the storyline and the game's core mechanics. They conclude by saying, we liked Echo very much but wanted to love it, suggesting while visually stunning and unique, there might be something holding it back from being a total masterpiece, though they do concede the graphics are completely stunning. This review of Echo the Dolphin, Defender of the Future on Dreamcast highlights the game's history, tracing its development from the Mega Drive days and subsequent delays as Jettail before arriving on the console. The long development time is cited as a factor in the game's polish. The review praises the game's visuals, emphasizing the impressive game world builder engine and its stunning underwater environments. While acknowledging the game's challenge, it points out the varied gameplay including puzzles, interaction with aquatic life, and sub-challenges like rescuing dolphins and racing. The complexity and depth contribute to high replayability. The screenshots showcase the game's graphical fidelity, with comparisons to the original Echo games and the grandeur of Atlantis, suggesting a visually impressive experience. This page reviews wacky races on the Dreamcast, and it's immediately drawing comparisons to Nintendo's classic Mario Kart, noting the similar handling, weapons, style, and gameplay. It's clear from the screenshots that they've captured the spirit of the cartoon, with those bonkers cars and characters. The review mentions that if you remember wacky races, and Over the Hill Read On, then this game is for you. They're saying the game uses the cartoon's visual style well, highlighting the black outlines and cartoonish look, and mentioning it's superior to the original cartoon in some ways. The controls are said to be standard, with analog triggers and face buttons for special weapons, which are acquired and used to attack opponents. Sounds very much like your typical kart racer. The reviewer is saying that luck is more prominent than pure driving skill, which suggests it might be a bit chaotic but fun in that classic cartoon fashion. The verdict box gives it a 6 out of 10 overall. Graphics are praised for the cartoon look. Sound is decent if a bit repetitive. Gameplay is described as valuable and high, and multiplayer is highlighted as a major part of the game. They conclude that it is likely to appeal to younger players and fans of the cartoon, but it may lack depth for serious racers. The screenshots show various tracks and characters in action, looking very colorful and lively, definitely capturing the essence of the old cartoon. This page is a review of Nightmare Creatures 2. It kicks off by lamenting that a great storyline and atmosphere have been wasted on a game engine that's just not up to the job, which is a bit of a harsh start. The game is described as having psychotic deformed monsters, black magic, and all set in the Orkney Islands, which sounds rather intriguing. The review mentions it's a third-person action adventure in dimly lit locations. They mention the plot is set in 1934, focusing on Aleister Crowley, and playing out to a 9 Inch Nails soundtrack, which is certainly a unique combination. They highlight the atmosphere and sound as strong points, but then get stuck into the gameplay itself, saying, once the novelty wears off, you realize the gameplay is weak. The control system is described as simple but repetitive, and they criticize the Plague Tomb Raider-style puzzles as complicated and pointless. Essentially, they feel the initial excitement wears off quickly, and it becomes boring. They mention fighting monsters, collecting magic spells, and the need to constantly mash buttons in combat. They conclude that it's a wasted opportunity, saying the graphics engine lets it down, despite the story and atmosphere. The verdict box gives it a 5 out of 10 overall, marking down graphics, sound as acceptable but repetitive, gameplay as weak, and lasting appeal as likely to be short-lived. The screenshots on the page show in-game action, confirming the dark and atmospheric environments they mention. Star Wars Episode 1 Racer receives a positive review, possibly being the best thing to come from the film. The review praises the game's ability to capture the excitement of pod racing with an emphasis on speed and handling. Tracks offer a mix of long straights and tight corners, creating a sense of velocity, and crashes are frequent but not overly frustrating. Visually impressive, the game also features aggressive, CPU racers. The review highlights the entertaining commentary, including funny banter and Jabba the Hutt's pre-race remarks. While acknowledging some graphical glitches, the review focuses on the positive aspects. The verdict rates graphics as sharp and imaginative, sound as flowing orchestral variations, and gameplay as solid with a good challenge. Multiplayer is deemed brilliant fun. Overall, the game scores a 7/10, deemed a very entertaining but limited racing game, reviewed by Sam Richards. This Dreamcast Games Guide reviews several titles across different genres. In the Best Racers, Hydro Thunder received a 7/10, Incoming an 8/10, and Monaco Grand Prix an 8/10. The Best Sports Games highlighted Sega Bass Fishing, 9/10, Shadow Man, 9/10, and Sonic Adventure and Soul Calibur, both at 10 out of 10. The Best Action/Adventure Games, Saws, Euro 2000 and Tomb Raider, The Last Revelation both receive 8/10, with Trick Style also scoring an 8/10. Other notable scores include Resident Evil 2, 7/10, Shell's Rage Rally Adventure, 7/10, and Toy Commander, 7/10. Several games received lower scores, with Weetrix Plus and Virtual Fighter 3 TB scoring the lowest at 2/10 and 3/10, respectively. This page showcases reader reviews from Dreamcast Magazine. First up is Revolt. Reviewer Nick Wilson reckons it's absolutely essential, praising its graphics and gameplay and especially the car handling, showing a screenshot of a race in progress. Next is Tomb Raider, The Last Revelation, where James Grinley seems rather disappointed, finding it a poor adventure game with confusing levels and clunky controls. We see a picture of Lara in a temple, looking a bit lost it seems. Then there's Choo Choo Rocket. David Richardson is clearly a fan, calling it the greatest multiplayer of all time, despite the simple graphics highlighting its addictiveness, and we get a glimpse of those choo-choos and cats in a maze. Finally, Speed Devils is reviewed by Joseph Young, who's impressed with its graphics, gameplay, and the betting system and car upgrades, with a screenshot of some high-speed racing action. On the right-hand side of the page, there's an advert for Netscape Online. It's got that familiar logo, and the word joy plastered across it. It's promoting full internet access for the price of a local phone call, boasting about being the people who made the internet accessible in the first place. Good old Netscape. The next page presents a double-page spread. On the left, it's an advert for Daily Radar UK, pushing itself as the place for up-to-the-minute games news online. It's got that radar graphic with incoming plastered above it, to give that sense of breaking news. They're really playing up their pedigree, boasting that they're from the people that brought you a whole stack of gaming mags like Official PlayStation, Edge, PC Gamer, N64, DC UK, Arcade, and GamesMaster. Solid credentials there. Over on the right, it's a DE Tips page, which, as you can guess, is all about making your favorite Dreamcast games a bit easier. Front and center is Resident Evil, Code Veronica with a big splash announcing Hints of the Month. They're promising to tell you how to survive the horror of the latest and greatest Resident Evil adventure. There's a shot of Claire Redfield looking determined, and a particularly nasty-looking zombie behind her, all very Code Veronica. Below that, they've got teasers for more tips sections. More, 094 Part 2, hints at more content on page 94, and 4-Wheel Thunder, 104 points to tips for that racer on page 104. And lastly, they've got Sega Bass Fishing with a promise on how to catch the super big ones and become a bass grandmaster, with pictures of some lures and fish to get you in the mood for some virtual angling. Right at the bottom there's a little sponsored by Gameplays logo, reminding you about that online games retailer. The next page continues the Resident Evil Code Veronica walkthrough, still labeled as Part 1 of the guide. Map 3 illustrates the palace, military training facility and prison areas after escaping the initial prison section. Map 4 then focuses on Palace 1F, detailing rooms like the bar, hallway, lounge, Ashbury family painting room, palace foyer, courtyard, lavatory and office. The tip section gives advice for navigating areas such as the courtyard, inner prison, mess hall, sleeping area, communications room, and then moves on to the outer lab area, laboratory, bridge, the passage, palace courtyard, prison courtyard, iron bridge, jetty, palace foyer, office, lavatory, foyer, hallway and lounge. It highlights items to collect, like handgun bullets, grenade rounds, submarine medallion, and the 3D copier, and strategies for dealing with zombies, and even dogs. There's also an image of Claire Redfield, showing the main character you're controlling. The next page continues the Resident Evil Code Veronica walkthrough, still in Part 1. We've got Map 5 here, which covers Palace 2F, pointing out locations like the casino, main office and office, and noting items to grab like bullets, ink ribbons and herbs. Then there's Map 7 showing the military training facility 1F, highlighting the locker room, bathhouse, dripping room, painting room and garage, with item callouts for things like arrows, grenades, bullets and herbs. Map 6 and Map 8 seem to be more general overviews, showing how the different areas connect up as you progress. The tip sections continue from M6 to M17, giving advice for various locations like the cargo room and outer lab, locker room and inner courtyard, bathhouse and briefing room, and then moving to the military training facility areas like the main kill zone and hallway, break room, storeroom, basement, boiler room, sewer hallway and finally the garage. They're pointing out items like ID cards, explosive arrows, safe keys, and strategies for dealing with those pesky zombies and dogs. Right at the bottom there's a section called Choose a Weapon for Every Occasion almost. It's showcasing a selection of weapons, from combat knives and grenade launchers to shotguns, magnums, dual automatics and even dual pistols. The sort of arsenal you expect to find in a survival horror game to deal with whatever nasties are lurking around the corner. The next page continues our dive into Resident Evil Code Veronica, still within Part 1. We're moving through the private residence now, as seen in Map 10, which covers the first floor. It pinpoints locations like the foyer, courtyard and trophy room. Map 11 gives us a peek at the second floor with areas like the dining room and guest room. The DKIP section, picking up where we left off, runs from M8 right through to M29. We're getting advice for rooms all over the place, from the painting room and motor pool, through the main office, and even the private residence courtyard. The tips highlight item locations like first aid sprays, grenade rounds and Colt pythons, alongside the usual ammo and herbs. Looks like we'll be facing zombies and dogs as we navigate these areas, including the foyer, trophy room, and even Alexia's bedroom. There's a puzzle in the painting room, involving a scale model, and another in the Ashbury family portrait room, where you've got to press buttons on paintings in a specific order. Right at the bottom there's a creature lurking, and a continued next issue banner, so it seems we're left on a cliffhanger for the next installment of the guide. This page continues the DEC tip section, moving away from Resident Evil and focusing on MDK2 with Part 2 Player's Guide. We're given advice for Level 7 and Level 8. Level 7 is all about navigating the hangar and dealing with enemies. The tip advises to shoot the 3 tunnels to start, then stand on the grid and use the sniper rifle to take out enemies looking out of exhaust vents. It mentions using grenades to break glass panels and sniper shells for enemies on benches. There's a part about using grenades to bounce bullets and take out enemies inside glass spheres. The advice wraps up with getting the cloak from inside. Level 8 tackles command heads, mentioning security forces and teleporting. It suggests starting down the street and looking left for a building with a red neon sign outside. The tip directs players to go back the way they came if needed, and to use Gatling guns to deal with enemies in the crates, in the dead end, to reveal a secret. Finally, there's a section dedicated to the boss fight, Schwang's ship. The advice here is to keep moving around the large open area, use the code weapons from the game, and keep an eye on Schwang's shields. Once the shields are down, it's time to attack with sniper shots. The tip finishes by stating that if your bullet hits the ship's toes, it results in instant control loss. This page continues the MDK2 Player's Guide, and we're now on to level 9, which is titled, Jim Dandy Through Hyperspace is Sad. The advice here is all about navigating this hyperspace level, using Jim Dandy's optical beams to your advantage, and those handy glasses to see what's going on. It mentions sticking to the right side of the screen initially, to give yourself plenty of time to adjust and get used to the hyperspace physics. There's a tip about using the claw on the control pad to move away from danger, and being gentle with it. You'll need to destroy pressure plates to progress. It also suggests you'll need to use a few pieces of gadgetry to get through this section. Below that, there's a section on the boss for level 8, Wheelchair Schwang. Apparently, conventional weapons are useless against him. The trick is to use the machine in the room, the one with the circular saw. You'll need to power up the machine and then whittle down Schwang's energy. The advice is to use the sniper rifle, and if you hit Schwang's toes on his ship, it'll cause instant control loss. This page continues the MDK2 Player's Guide, moving on with tips for level 9 with Kurt, and mentions using the polymorph obstruction to get through obstacles. For Doc, there's advice on using the ladder and getting ready to confront Zizzy. Then for level 10 with Kurt, it's all about using the sniper scope and cloak to deal with turrets and aliens. Max is up next, advising a direct approach, using the rocket launcher to take out enemies. Did ya? Finally, there's a section on the final boss, Zizzy Beluga. The guide suggests he's a tough one, and gives tips on how to dodge his attacks and use the environment to your advantage. You'll need to keep moving to avoid his beams, use the energy walls to your advantage, and aim for his brain to deal damage. It looks like a proper showdown to finish the game. This D-Tips guide focuses on mastering Sega Bass Fishing on the Dreamcast. The game offers arcade, time-based, and original, tournament-focused modes, alongside a practice mode. Success hinges on understanding environmental factors. Time of day and weather, sun, clouds, rain, heavily influence fish behavior and location by affecting water temperature and visibility. The guide also provides advice on lure selection. Starting lures include deep crank, deep water, shallow crank, floating minnow, shallow water/docks, spinnerbait, versatile, pencil bait, shallow water, and vibration. Experimentation is key, matching lure color and type to weather conditions and water depth. Finally, it stresses the importance of constant reeling, adjusting speed to attract fish. This guide offers tips for Sega Bass Fishing, detailing lure choices and fishing locations. For lures, the grub is best for murky, deep water, the buzzbait is versatile for surface fishing, the paddle tail suits shallow, rocky areas, the rubber jig targets deeper areas, the straight worm is for murky, deep lake beds, and the suspended minnow works in shallow waters. Key fishing areas include Lake Paradise, Inlet Area, the Palace, Lake Crystal Dew, Bridge Area, Lodge Area, Cape Area, the Reeds, the Cave, and the Falls, each with specific depths and recommended lures. The guide also features a big bass ranking, with Max DC holding the top spot with a catch of 8.697 kg. Players can compete in arcade mode to try and beat the record, as seen in a record-size screenshot of an 8,649 grams fish. This page is a player's guide for Four-Wheel Thunder. It starts with the highway code, giving you some basic racing advice like always boosting when possible and making good use of second boosts for overtaking. Then it moves on to hot rods of distinction, explaining the different vehicle types available in the game. You've got your monster trucks, which are described as the Goliaths of the four-wheel racing circuit, good for grip. Then there's the nippy little buggies for better turning. Jeeps are said to handle well, and are good all-rounders for novice races, and quads are back again with average stats but smaller and lighter. Upgrading is covered next, outlining the 6 levels of upgrades available for your vehicles, improving performance as you progress through the championships. Finally, there's a section on indoor arenas showcasing 6 of the tracks: Canada, Corsica, Scandinavia, Far West, Iceland, and Atlas. Canada's track features a tricky hairpin after the first bridge, and recommends handbrake turns for tight corners. Corsica is described as less about tight corners, and more about battling opponents. Scandinavia is called Tricky Blighter, with blind corners and tight turns, needing memorization. Far West is a Figaro Fate-style course, good for collecting boost power-ups. Iceland is mostly outdoors, long and winding with some tricky corners. Atlas is a desert track made of sand and camel spit, making it soft and not very rigid, requiring careful approach to obstacles and handbraking for tight corners, especially around the rock bridge. This guide continues the Four-Wheel Thunder player's tips, focusing on indoor arenas. Canada, a road racing track, advises cutting corners, using bush shortcuts, navigating aquaplaning, and avoiding falling logs. Corsica emphasizes rival battles, recommending sharp turns, hedge gaps, bush shortcuts, and driving under the bridge. Norway, a shortcut track, encourages ignoring road signs for a mini shortcut, followed by a bush and bridge shortcut. Alps, set in Switzerland, features grass shortcuts, high roads, a downhill cave route, and corner cutting around road signs. Finally, Far West, a redneck track, suggests using the road split, driving through the barn, and utilizing a sneaky bush shortcut. The next page of the mag continues the Four-Wheel Thunder Player's Guide, now on to part 1, and this time it's covering the outdoor locations. We've got track maps and gameplay shots for 4 locations: Greece, Iceland, Jordan and Atlas. For Greece, the advice is to stick to the inside line early on, especially near the start, and then take the second left for a quicker route. Iceland is all about chaotic tracks, and using the right side of the ramp to grab the 9-second boost, then staying right to get on the bridge. Jordan is described as a navigator's nightmare, and it's all about following the right-hand route at splits and sticking to the track. Finally, Atlas is similar to Jordan, terrain-wise, but more fiendish. The tip here is to take the 3-way split left option, and then weave your way through the route, being mindful of ponds and tunnels. It's all about route selection in these outdoor environments. The DC Interactive Challenge encourages Dreamcast players to showcase their gaming skills. Challenges vary across several games. In NBA 2K, players must slam dunk the funk with stylish alley-oops and quarter spins. Virtua Striker 2 tasks players to score a beautiful goal for points and photographic proof. Crazy Taxi offers several challenges: Crazy Jump, Time Attack modes, and Crazy Flag. High score tables are available for these challenges. Sega Bass Fishing challenges players to achieve a high score. Soul Calibur features Time Attack and Survival mode challenges. Winners can potentially win a Mad Catz joypad by submitting their scores to DC UK, with the best scores each month featured. This month's Ask Auntie Esther covers various Dreamcast questions. Advice includes buying a used Dreamcast, confirming the release of Code Veronica, and offering opinions on WWF WrestleMania. Street Fighter Alpha 3 is confirmed to be coming. Armada's release date is unknown. Saturn writing and fishing game compatibility on Dreamcast are discussed, with a focus on travel plugs. Esther dismisses the possibility of Dragon Ball Z or Siphon Filter 2 on Dreamcast. She addresses Metal Gear Solid 2 rumors and the cross-platform nature of Tomb Raider games. The Blair Witch series is confirmed for the Dreamcast. A picture-in-picture clipping system is mentioned. Esther provides humorous advice regarding loading issues, then addresses autofire questions for games like Ikaruga, stating it goes against the spirit of the game. Noft? The DM at ill section, the letters page, features reader opinions. One reader praises Fur Fighters and Deep Fighter's impressive Dreamcast graphics, highlighting the console's simulation potential. Another laments import issues and refund difficulties. A strongly worded letter cautions against trusting Sega. A reader raves about NFL 2K's graphics and gameplay, despite import challenges, leading to a discussion on regional release differences. A reader requests more content from columnist Dean Mortlock. Finally, a reader expresses appreciation for the magazine's honesty and quality journalism. This magazine page covers various Dreamcast internet-related topics. Internet News focuses on anime-style art tutorials, directing readers to websites for inspiration and techniques. Jargon Buster explains essential internet terms for Dreamcast users. VM Magic highlights downloadable minigames for the VM unit, while Decent Game Shocker details someone's successful, though stripped down, port of Metal Gear Solid to the VM. Cool Sites lists interesting websites covering fashion, music, virtual stock trading, Sonic the Hedgehog, and Tony Hawk. VM Downloads discusses the novelty of downloading games directly to the VM. An advertisement for Sega of Japan's free telephone service is also included. Finally, DC Sites promotes fan-created Dreamcast content, using a Soul Calibur site as an example, followed by the DC UK web directory and contact information. This page is an advert promoting Planet DC cheat discs for Dreamcast games, boasting a galaxy of cheats at prices that are out of this world for £4.99 each. They promise powerful collections of easy-to-use cheats to unlock everything in Dreamcast games. It mentions the Action Replay CDX cheat engine too. On the right side, there's an advert to subscribe for £6 to DC UK Magazine, highlighting a saving of £1.85 an issue compared to the regular price of £2.95. It mentions a free CD case when you pay by direct debit, and the cover of the magazine visible features Fur Fighters. This page is a web directory for Dreamcast and general gaming websites. Sites like ebay.co.uk and funhouse.co.uk are listed for buying games and accessories. htfur.com is mentioned for rare records, and livedigital.co.uk for import games. madforitgames.co.uk and videogamecenter.co.uk are highlighted as places to buy new and retro games. puredreamcast.co.uk is also listed. There's a summer sale advert showcasing a long list of Dreamcast games with prices, categorized as out now and new releases, including titles like Crazy Taxi, Soul Calibur, Space Channel 5, Resident Evil Code, Veronica, and Virtua Fighter 3 TB. Advertisements for Cybernet Film Studio video game experts, and JustGames.net selling new Dreamcast games from £14.99 are also featured, alongside an advert for an IT3 magazine focusing on water sports technology. This page showcases Ready to Rumble Round 2, billing it as the very latest info on Midway's boxing sequel with new characters and team interviews. They've also got previews of Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Dead or Alive 2, F1 World Grand Prix 2, Alien Resurrection, and Ferrari F355 in this issue. There's a chap with a massive afro in the main image, likely from Ready to Rumbles, and a smaller chap in green shorts and gloves in the corner. It's an exclusive first ever full preview, no less. Looks like there's also some stuff about Tony Hawk's skateboarding too. On the right, there's a big advert for Action Replay CDX for the Dreamcast, calling it the #1 hit. Apparently, it's just become available for the Dreamcast, and it's pitched as the world's best cheat cartridge that gives you the power to stretch your Sega Dreamcast games to the max. It boasts stacks of cheats, an easy menu system, and even a free tutorial on how to cheat. They reckon it's fully updatable with new cheat codes from various sources. It's available from leading retailers or by calling a phone number. And there's even a chance to win Dreamcast games and accessories worth £500.